All right, so like I said, thanks for joining today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to recap some of our updates here. We've got this stuff listed out. The mailer went out this morning, so if it didn't come through your inbox, maybe check your spam folder to see if it got caught up there. If you didn't get it at all, let me know so that I can see what's going on with that to make sure that you're able to be notified whenever there's updates to the system. But so with that said, the first thing that I want to show you has been something that I think we've wanted to input for a long time, and it's to configure your own accounts. So we're going to start up here at the My Company page. In this column right here, I'm going to direct you down to this My Colleagues section. This column right here is brand new. So if you haven't changed anything yet, what it's going to show you is everyone is marked to yes. And we know that over the course of time, people are going to come and go within their roles. Maybe they move within the company to something that's no longer DIRC facing, or they move on to a new job. So what this is going to let you do is for all of those users who you just have included in there, so you can copy them on emails or you can assign them to different tasks. All you have to do is just go ahead and click this over to no. And then click this, I'm not going to it quite yet, just so you guys can still see the screen. But once you do that, what it's going to do is it's no longer going to start automatically adding all of these people to your projects. So on a go-forward basis, when you convert your next opportunity, they won't be on that project. One thing we did do on this is we left it so that anyone who was historically added to a project is still going to be on there. So you'll kind of have that history for anything that was at the project stage. You can see if they were assigned to any items. So what we're looking at is the DIRC partner view. So this is something that you can manage. I guess I would just want to end on this note. For the instances where you need to transfer a license between someone, that's still something that you should just email myself, john.lamb@kineticcloud.com or support@kineticcloud.com, and we can get that license transferred over for you, no problem. Cool. So the next thing is staying on this My Company page. You can now create multiple warehouses. So you'll notice that the format of this has changed a little bit. Used to just be a bunch of free entry fields here. And now we've got this, this handy view over here to the right. So the first thing you can see is this is our old warehouse. I would imagine that almost everyone on this call probably just has one warehouse right now. So you can click into it, you can edit it, and we're just going to rename this one to Warehouse 1. And I'm going to do a new warehouse. Let's call it Warehouse 2. Input some information. And we'll click Save. So the cool thing about this is we know that some of you out there are going to have multiple different warehouse locations, and there's no reason to need to really rekey all that information between your different projects. So let me show you. I'm going to click Save here, and let me show you how that works within the application. I guess before I do that, were there any questions just on creating the new warehouse, how to edit it, or anything like that?
No.
Cool. So now that I've clicked Save here, we'll go to one of the places where you've got these drop downs where all of your addresses are stored. So within your orders page, this is one of the examples. So anywhere where you have this job site, warehouse, install team warehouse, or other drop down, that warehouse will now be available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click warehouse, and we're going to get a pop-up.
What's new from the last 10 years?
I know. It's good to see
Hey, John,
you.
can you ask everybody to mute their phones, please?
Try.
Hey,
Yeah, this should be familiar. This is actually the same way the install team warehouse option works. So if you were to do the same thing with install team warehouse, you'd get all of your different vendor addresses here, and you just double click one and it pulls it down into here. So I guess with that in mind, one note I would add here is that if you continue just to have one warehouse, you will not get the pop-up. So it'll just populate as it's been populating for you with your with however long you've been using KPMIC for. So this, I guess before I move on to the next one, I just want to point out there, where all this is used. So the orders, it's used over on the delivery tickets as well as deficiencies. I believe it's used on purchase orders as well as orders, and I think COM items. So there's a lot of different places in here where this will come into play for you. So definitely if you have multiple addresses, I would strongly recommend doing and putting them on that My Company page in order to kind of take advantage of that. So the next thing I wanted to touch on here is also related to My Company. It's the ability to import tasks. And I do have a question for you guys on the phone. Does anyone currently use these common task items? It's okay if the answer is no. I'll take that silence as a currently we do not. But this is something that I think, with the revisions to the task module that came in, that were put out last year, I think this task part is really one of the more useful parts of the application, one of the parts where you can really take advantage of that, of this being like a common stop for your project team. So everyone is able to, communicate through this. You're able to get emails that are not just having to go into the application and checking, but I'll kind of get to that. So what we put in here were a bunch of tasks that are going to have to occur for every project. So I'm just going to hold down the control button. I'm going to select all of these because we actually want to pull every single one of these tasks in. I'm going to hit select here. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull in every one of those tasks for me. And now we've got a bunch of tasks all created, and they are all right now just assigned to me. So if we wanted, we can, add other people on our project team to them. And as people go through, they can say like, all right, complete the punch, or, whatever it is, create the shop drawings, organize the installation crew. They can come through here and click this check mark. That'll mark it closed, and it's off the list. It's just one way to keep your team more organized. And without jumping too far ahead, because we're going to do a quick rundown of tasks, is that you can use these comments, and anyone who is either following or assigned to the task is going to get an email generated by the system. So it's not like you have to come back in here to see, did so-and-so respond to my comment, or have they completed it? If you're following or assigned to the task, you will get a notification letting you know that has been closed. So the next one, I wanted to just mention this briefly, is that on our quotes on the internal pricing page, which I imagine many of you use to transfer information over to your accounting counterparts, is that the gross profit was available line by line. We added it to make sure that it is available for the quote as a whole. The next thing, for billables, I'm going to go ahead and go to a project for this. We removed a couple of the required fields. I think this was kind of a natural move to make eventually, is that with billables versus deficiencies, there were still a couple of fields that were required because this page here just mimics what a deficiency is. But if you're doing a billable that is not related to a deficiency, you no longer need to include product or the MSGR tag. The one thing that is required is the reason. So the reason is still required is because there are graphs driven off of it. If you go over to the reporting page, that are going to look to see what was driving the billable. and that will help you kind of analyze and recap your project status once you're completed on it. So easy enough there. And then the COM form. This one is, I think, a pretty handy thing because it is going to match to the DIRT form. So when you send it off to them, you can use this to prepare it and to go through it. I'm going to go over to the COM doors and hardware. And just a little trick for all of y'all, if you didn't know this, you can actually double click this gray bar here at the top, and that'll maximize any of these pop-ups. But so the changes here are pretty substantial for the COM hardware form versus the old form. Before, it used to be where you would just select your door style, select your door type, whatever it is, but none of the fields really talk to each other. So with what DIRT put together on their interactive PDF, it's really the same logic that goes into this part. So if you've got a single door, now we can pick the door style. So any of the doors here are in single door. And if we pick pocket door, all of a sudden everything else is filled in for us because they know that these are really the only options if you're picking a pocket door. So it's similar for any of the other choices. If you do a pivot door, it's just going to be completely blank. If you do a barn door, it's going to stay your strike plate is going to be NA. A couple other things that changed here as well. The hardware is just a free entry field, and there's also this drop down for the COM hardware application. And then the PDF, of course, is going to match to the to what DIRT is looking for. So one question that you might have on this is, what about my old COM forms? Is it only going to be in the new style? The answer is that your old form is going to remain in the old style. So if you were to need to reprint it out, it would still print it out with all the old information in the old format. And the same thing will be true for here. It'll just show you the old selection stuff as well. So maybe we'll just wrap this one up by creating the PDF, just so you guys can have a quick look at it. But right, so all the information we filled in pulls through here. This info case number is another new field. And then on our second page, we just have all of our custom hardware descriptions. But I think if you filled out these forms before, it's still probably pretty familiar to you. But I guess, are there any questions at this point? I think that's pretty much it for the updates that we wanted to go through live here. All right, so what I wanted to take a look at next is the field functions. How many of you have your install teams or people who are on site log into KPMIC to submit items? Or maybe the question should be, does anyone on this call already have their install team use that vendor type login? All right, cool. So we'll start at the beginning then. I guess the natural follow-up question, did you know that you can set up anyone on your install team or your field users with an account for free? There's no additional fee for it. This is not a named license. So if you were to go over to the vendors tab, you can go into one of your install teams. And what you can do is you can create an employee of the company, which I would assume most of you are familiar with already. But all you have to do is include their name, their email, and then you click the Save an Email User button. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate an email to them, which will allow them to set up their password and then log in. So it's not going to be full access, but what it is going to be access to is the field functions that we are going to talk about, as well as to any projects that this particular vendor is assigned to. If they're not assigned to the project, like if you use, say, multiple install teams within the same area, they will not be able to see all projects you're working on, just the ones that you have added them to. And just as a reminder, that comes back to that project team section where all of the kind of security is set for the stuff. So because the field users will likely be doing mobile stuff, we'll actually just flip through this PDF to go through because, just a little tougher to try to share my phone with you over this. But this was the first step. So click the Save an Email User. They're able to set themselves up. And then once they log in, what they will see is a list of projects. So they just click into the project, and then we'll have all the modules. This stuff is really the same as what you have on the left side of the desktop application or those tabs at the top. So the four that really are the most relevant for field users are status reports, deficiencies, PCIs, potential cost impacts, and punch list items. So we'll step through each one of those. And then just a couple of other notes when using the mobile function. This hamburger button will reveal the overview. So you can go to all your projects or deficiencies, all tasks, all of your schedule items. Then once you're in them, the left will take you back and the right part will save here and then go back. So first things first, status reports. So status reports are really helpful if you have your team track their hours. So, right, why would you want them to submit their status reports? This way you can see what activity is going on. If you're not able to make it out to the job site, you can have them submit through here, and then you can just pick it up on your side and see, okay, we had 3 guys working. What they did was they were doing finished tiles today. They got X number of linear feet done, and their time was broken down, 8 hours for a supervisor, 16 for the technicians, and 24 for laborers. The other cool thing about this, and this is really common across any of the mobile modules, is that they are able to take a picture with their phone and then upload it directly into this. So if there was, say, a problem on one of the things that they were supposed to do today, they could include a picture of it and just submit it directly through that. And so what's the benefit of this, right? The benefit of it is that I would imagine for a lot of you, you're getting a text or, an email here or there from your installers. And this, like, you get a couple of weeks down the road and you're like, where did that picture go that, we had to deal with? And here's the context about, what happened. Instead of having to hunt down all that stuff. And, we've seen, even examples of someone taking a picture of, of a napkin, with some notes written on it and texted it off. But that aside, this way it pulls it all back into your project. So remember, within the desktop application here, you're going to have your status reports all stacked under here. So all of your information is really aligned to your project. It's going to have a date on it. It's going to tell you who submitted it. And, for your status reports, it's going to have your hours and everything else. The next is deficiencies. I'm not going to dwell on any of these a ton because I know we're already about halfway through our session today, and I do want to leave plenty of time for any questions. One thing that we found is when you're trying to train your install team on it, it ends up being a pretty quick process because once they get the hang of this, it really works pretty much the same way across the board. So you create a new deficiency, you get this stuff, you can create your deficiency details, you just look for the green button. One catch here is just, always make sure to click that top right save button instead of clicking the back button. I know it can be kind of tempting because, going left to go back. But similarly, you can fill out your deficiency details as well as include pictures here. It's really handy being able to go directly from grabbing something at the field and just having a picture just available right there on the application. So PCIs. Does anyone already use PCIs on the call? I think some of you do. So a PCI is a potential cost impact, and it will let you take the cost and turn it into something else later. And what's the benefit of doing that? The helpful thing about this is if there's something happens like on the job site, like let's say that an entrance is blocked, there's other folks working there and can't get in to do what they need to do. And so your install crew submits a PCI and it's like, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to be resolved, but here's your PCI, it's open and it's going to be something that we need to address, although I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be resolved because, they're going to be out there for some extra hours. There's some costs that's going to be associated with that. And so with the PCI, you can turn it into a billable or a deficiency or also a change order. So it's really a handy way of getting an early heads up on something without necessarily committing to exactly how it's going to be resolved. So partners that have taken advantage of these have really found them to be a useful tool as far as just kind of keeping organized and keeping on top of what's going on the projects. Right, and we've got the ability to submit the number of hours and the estimated costs from the pictures similar to the other ones. And then finally, punch list. So you've got your title, what the action is, and what the status of it is. So all you need to do is to take a picture of what it is and submit it. You can send the email right from your phone, which is handy. That'll let people know right away if it's out there. Otherwise, most of this stuff, I think actually all four of these ones are captured by an automatic post on the conversations. So if you've got your daily conversation update still turned on, you'll get the message in the evening that will let you know, hey, a new PCI was created, a couple punch list items came through, or whatever the case may be. Anyway, those are the four main field functions. Like I said at the beginning, these all of your field licenses are really included with the cost of it, so there's no additional cost in creating accounts for your vendors to be able to take advantage of this. So it's definitely a way to be able to get more out of the application. I assume because you guys are dialed in today, you probably want to make sure to get more out of it if you can. So the last thing that I wanted to take a look at with you all today, or the last thing that we have prepared anyway, is tasks. So I assume some, if not all of you, already use tasks, but if you haven't used tasks, I'm just going to go do a quick rundown about how to use them. because this module has changed a lot, and it's really one of the best areas to be able to be collaborative with your team via the application. So I guess just starting at the top, we have our list of tasks here. This is going to default to my open tasks. So if you click this, we'll get the other drop downs. You'll be able to see all tasks or all open tasks, my closed tasks, et cetera, et cetera. This red line over here is going to show you whether the task is due or overdue. If this is just gray, it's going to be open. It'll turn green when you mark it closed. We've got our task title here, as well as our project and, our client on top, and then the project name is below. So the red heart here is to follow it. So you might not need to be assigned to a task, but say you're working on the team and you just want to make sure that you're informed on anything going on the project. By following it, you will get your email updates. So if someone adds a comment, that will generate an email over to you. I think the same thing is true if it is closed as well. Just going through these different functions here. So if you click on a task over here to the left, it will show up on the right here. So close it. This is the priority. If you hover over any of these, don't worry about trying to remember all of them. If you hover over them, it'll give you a little tooltip here that will let you know exactly what each of these things does. So with the priority, that will actually change the color of your event. If you were to go over to the calendar view, so if it's green for low priority, it'll be green on the calendar as well. Gray for medium, and then red for high priority. I'm not going to drain every one of these functions, but as I said, you can hover over them to see it. I do want to touch on the assign new team members. You can come in here, and as you can see, it's not just people who are associated to your DIRT partner. You can also assign things out to vendor employees that you've added to your project team or people on the DIRT side as well. And if you need to send an email, or if you want to just send out, hey, went and posted a bunch of things that we're planning on needing to do for our project, want to make sure that you see it, you click this send assignment notification, and it will send an email out to everyone who's assigned to it. Similarly, if you create a subtask and then assign this to someone, this is actually going to generate an email directly from here. So just it'll say the new subtask has been assigned to you, and then they will be able to come in here and view it. This subtask will actually show up for Bo in this case on the left side of the application, and you can say like we just need it done by tomorrow. But anyway, so that's the still relatively new task module in a nutshell. I guess at this point I will pause here and see what questions you guys have.